Well, that Blockbuster trade actually happened. I'll talk about the Pierre-Luc Dubois for Patrik Laine trade in this video. We'll talk about that first. However, as a Calgary Flames fan, apparently we were also interested in the Pierre-Luc Dubois sweepstakes as well. So I'll talk about what I think a hypothetical package would have required for the Calgary Flames to win the Pierre-Luc Dubois sweepstakes, and then I'll give you my feelings on both the trade that actually happened and the hypothetical trade that I think would have likely need to happen if we were to get Pierre-Luc Dubois. So let's bring out the press release or look at the trade that has happened between the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Winnipeg Jets. As we knew coming into this season that the players involved in this trade that all were disgruntled with their current playing situation and their team situation as well. I mean, Patrik Laine was expressing that he wanted to be a number one center as he was been bounced around between Mark Scheifele and Patrik Laine on the first and second line with the Winnipeg Jets. While Pierre-Luc Dubois definitely made it apparent that he wanted to out of Columbus, but he still signed that 2-year deal worth $10 million with a $5 million cap hit for this season and next season. But it really got sour quickly with the Columbus Blue Jackets and Pierre-Luc Dubois, especially in that last game with the Columbus Blue Jackets took on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Pierre-Luc Dubois only played a grand total of just under 4 minutes of ice time. And keep in mind that the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Tampa Bay Lightning not only went to overtime in that game, but Pierre-Luc Dubois on the Columbus Blue Jackets is the number one center. I mean, you can see on here that last shift that Pierre-Luc Dubois brought in for the Columbus Blue Jackets almost looked like he was doing a casualty skate on Olympic Plaza ice right in downtown Calgary as a comparison. But it definitely was getting very apparent that he wasn't happy in Columbus under their coach John Tortorella or his situation or his playing time. And then, I guess almost as a punishment, he was stapled to the end of the bench. That's not a good sign that where things are at with your number one center. So essentially how this trade happened was that the Columbus Blue Jackets, they sent forward Pierre-Luc Dubois and a 2022 third round pick to the Columbus Blue Jackets. In exchange, the Columbus Blue Jackets to get forward Patrik Laine, and the Winnipeg Jets are retaining 26% of his salary to make it $5 million cap hit going to the Columbus Blue Jackets, as well as for Jack Roslovic, as Jack Roslovic also made it apparent that he wanted out of Winnipeg as well, and he was a restricted free agent, hasn't signed with the team yet, so essentially the Columbus Blue Jackets acquired his signing rights, and then after he got traded to the Columbus Blue Jackets, they signed him to a 2-year deal, and his contract is, let's look at it right now, that his contract is a 2-year deal worth $3.8 million with the Columbus Blue Jackets. So essentially, all the players involved in this trade are going to new destinations as they were all very dissatisfied and disgruntled with their current situation and the current team. And also the other thing you can throw in to make this even more interesting is that if you go back to the 2016 NHL entry draft after Austin Matthews got selected first overall by the Toronto Maple Leafs, well, the Winnipeg Jets had the second overall pick, and they used it on forward Patrik Laine. And then the Columbus Blue Jackets had the third overall pick. And actually at that time it was a surprise with many hockey pundits that the Columbus Blue Jackets decided to draft Pierre-Luc Dubois. So essentially the second and third overall picks from the 2016 draft are being traded for each other. And then, I mean, this trade, I would say, in theory works, is that the Columbus Blue Jackets were trading away their top center, and they get a top center in return, or top forward. And Patrik Laine, he'll definitely get his first line minutes that he was seeking. They wasn't quite exactly seeking with the Winnipeg Jets just because they are deeper down the middle in the Winnipeg Jets. And then Pierre-Luc Dubois, he gets his wish that he just wanted to get the heck out of Columbus. And then Jack Roslovic, well, it's kind of a homecoming for him as he is from the Columbus area, so it's kind of a homecoming for him as well. So in a way, hopefully all the players that are involved in this trade are happy with their change of scenery and the third round pick until we know what's up with that third round pick in 2022, I think right now I would say the Columbus Blue Jackets look pretty good on this deal, considering that their hand was forced. It got forced a lot quicker when the situation got a lot more sour, especially that last game the Columbus Blue Jackets played, where Pierre-Luc Dubois looked like he was just skating casually on the Olympic Plaza ice, not giving a damn, and I think he had a rift a little bit John Tortorella. And John Tortorella came out at the start of the season and said, yeah, Pierre-Luc Dubois wanted out of Columbus, but I think he was trying to make it work in the meantime, where Columbus maybe had some time to come up with a better package. The only other scenario that I can compare this to is the situation that the Colorado Avalanche had with Matt Duchene, that Colorado was able to be patient long enough with Matt Duchene and be able to get a big trade when they acquired him when they sent him to the Ottawa Senators, and I think the Colorado Avalanche did pretty well in that trade. The way how things are working with the Columbus Blue Jackets, I didn't think they have that luxury, as it was looking more and more apparent that when you bench your number one center and he only played 4 minutes, or just under 4 minutes of ice time, in a game that went into overtime, that is not a good sign. But Colorado, or not saying Columbus, I mean, they get a proven 30, 40 goal scorer who maybe could score 50. So it'll be interesting to see how Patrik Laine will fit in, especially with John Tortorella's more abrasive coaching style and more defensive-minded philosophy. And then Pierre-Luc Dubois going to the Winnipeg Jets. Could this team just seem to be what he needed? Be interesting to see how he'd fit in with, Mark Scheifele and Paul Stastny as well with the Winnipeg Jets. So that's the trade that actually happened. It's one of the bigger trades that have happened, especially involving, two fairly new prospects, or not prospects, but two new young forwards right now, as they both were drafted in 2016. However, there was also many teams that were interested in acquiring Pierre-Luc Dubois, as he is looked to be an upcoming two-way center that many teams covet. Apparently, initially when there's reports that Pierre-Luc Dubois was disgruntled with the Columbus Blue Jackets, that apparently 20 teams were on him, and it came down towards the last couple of days that 3 Canadian teams were interested in him. I mean, obviously the Winnipeg Jets, that they won the sweepstakes, but there was rumors that the Montreal Canadiens were also interested in acquiring him as well. I mean, he is from Quebec, and I guess there's that natural connection as well, and the fact that the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Montreal Canadiens recently engaged on a big trade as well, with the Max Domi and Josh Anderson trade. But the Calgary Flames, they apparently were also interested in acquiring him as well. And then I also heard that the Anaheim Ducks, as well as the Los Angeles Kings, were like one of the last remaining teams. But I think the Calgary Flames would have had a little trickier. Probably would have had to come up with a bigger package to make it work for the Calgary Flames to get Pierre-Luc Dubois. Because when it comes to the salary cap, I mean, I know the Columbus Blue Jackets will add a little more salary with the Jack Roslovic signing. I mean, the Winnipeg Jets retained some salary to make it work, because Patrik Laine was making over $6.3 million. Well, that brings it down to $5 million. That's why they retained the salary. I mean, Patrik Laine's deal is up after this season, while Pierre-Luc Dubois has this season and next season, so interesting to see how it goes. But when you look at the Calgary Flames, I think the Calgary Flames would have had to come up with this kind of package. Flames Nation, the article on the internet that said that there was a hypothetical trade that likely the Flames would have to make to get Pierre-Luc Dubois, and they threw in the forward Sean Monahan, because we would have to trade him to get Pierre-Luc Dubois, because this is a hockey trade, not a futures trade. We're trading away a top forward to try to get picks and prospects down the road. This will be someone you need to bring in right now, as both Calgary and Columbus are teams that are looking to keep reloading and not rebuilding at this stage. So I think we would have had to sacrifice Sean Monahan, and then also the Flames Nation threw in Noah Hanifin, the defenseman, who has always been rumored the last few months that he's been potentially shopped around, but mostly has been always connected with the Boston Bruins. I mean, he is from the Boston area, so there's that natural homecoming for him as well. And they did also say a third-round pick that the Calgary Flames would also throw in just to get Pierre-Luc Dubois. And that's almost similar to what the trade involved with the Winnipeg Jets and the Columbus Blue Jackets. But when you look at the cap hits for the Calgary Flames, let's hypothetically say that Sean Monahan and Noah Hanifin were going to be involved in this trade. Well, Sean Monahan still has 3 years left on his deal that expires at the end of the 2022-2023 season. Excuse me, that worth $6.375 million. He does have a modified no trade clause. And then when it comes to Noah Hanifin, well, he has still 4 years left on his deal, worth $4.9 million. That expires at the end of the 2023-24 season. So we're looking at about $11.5 million in cap space that the Calgary Flames excuse me, would have to move out, that we likely would have to move in to make this trade work. Because the Columbus Blue Jackets are very right up against the cap with their active roster, and they're going to have to do some creative accounting to make it work after getting the Jack Roslovic signed in. And the fact that Patrik Laine is actually on the injured reserve, so that's going to factor in the quarantine time. So when I look at the Columbus Blue Jackets salary cap, if we were to get Pierre-Luc Dubois, I would also think that the defenseman we would have to get would be David Savard. Because I'd be looking at, if we were going to trade, forward and a defenseman in this trade, we would want that back right away to insert into the lineup. And David Savard is the third highest paid defenseman on the Columbus Blue Jackets, worth $4.25 million, and he's 30 years old, and he's an unrestricted free agent at the end of this season. There might still have to be excuse me, some retained salary in this trade as well to make it work, but I think that is my hypothetical trade that would have to require if the Calgary Flames were to win the Pierre-Luc Dubois sweepstakes, where we would have to definitely sacrifice Sean Monahan, and it wouldn't be someone that I'm willing to part with, as well as defenseman Noah Hanifin in this trade, to get Pierre-Luc Dubois, just because, Sean Monahan has proven that he's a 20-goal scorer every season he has been in the NHL. Since he debuted in the 2013-14 season, he is 3 years older than Pierre-Luc Dubois when he was drafted in 2016. And some are saying he is still showing some upside on becoming that two-way center, and he did show in the return last season in the playoffs with the playing series against the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Tampa Bay Lightning that he had 10 points in 10 games. But I think the risk would have probably potentially outweighed the award that the Calgary Flames would have gotten if we would have made this trade to get Pierre-Luc Dubois, and it might potentially, mess up the chemistry as well, with the new core with Sean Monahan and Johnny Gaudreau. And unlike the players that were involved in the actual trade, they were disgruntled and not happy with their situation and wanted to change the scenery. I don't sense that right now with any current Calgary Flames players. So I'm going to say, when it comes to the trade that actually happened, I think the Columbus Blue Jackets did very well. And then I guess, it solves the issues on both sides on clearing out any, any distractions from players that are not totally happy with the situation. It just deteriorated a lot more quickly on the Columbus side with Pierre-Luc Dubois. And then when it comes to, that's the thing, that Patrik Laine is already on the injured list, and hearing that now if you travel from Canada to the U.S., you got to quarantine for a week. Well, he'll be quarantined while he's recovering, and then I'm thinking that this 2 weeks still could apply with Pierre-Luc Dubois going from the U.S. into Canada. We would not be willing to do that right now if we were to trade away to get Pierre-Luc Dubois. And now with the travel restrictions in play, that if any Canadian or American team's going to want to make a trade, they're probably going to rather do it now instead of towards the deadline when you're looking to rebuild or load up for the playoffs and you're down the stretch and not sure where things are at right now. But I had to say, what do you think of the actual trade that happened between the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Winnipeg Jets? And then what do you think of this hypothetical trade that I came up with, that the Calgary Flames, in conjunction with that Flames Nation article, that we would have to make to likely appease the Columbus Blue Jackets to want to take our package that we would offer to get Pierre-Luc Dubois, as well as to make the the money work when it comes to the salary cap. There might still have to be another player, prospect, or cheaper player we might have to take in to make that $11.5 million roughly work. So anyway, as I say, you want to follow along with Calgary sports fans' journey, home to Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, and Stampeders. I mostly do talk Calgary sports on my YouTube channel, but I also do have a variety of content when I don't talk sports. At personal vlogs, attempt to comedy, and I also do share my experience swimming on the road or a sporting event. So if that all sounds like it'd be interesting to watch, to follow along with Calgary sports fans' journey, you know what you do, just make sure you like, subscribe. I also have my other social media down in the description below. I originally was planning on making a video where I said should the Calgary Flames make a play for Pierre-Luc Dubois, because back in September when the Arizona Coyotes were rumored to potentially look at moving Oliver Ekman-Larsson and goaltender Darcy Kuemper to get under or reduce their salary cap and potentially recoup some picks and prospects that they lost with that combine violation that they got caught with, where they lost draft picks that I talked about. That was rumors that the Calgary Flames were interested in both of those players, and this was also factored into for free agent frenzy that I would say it still might have been worth it for the Calgary Flames to potentially go after Oliver Ekman-Larsson, but ultimately what ended that was that Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who has a no movement clause in his contract, really didn't want to leave Arizona, because he said he only wanted to go to Vancouver and Boston, and both of those teams were really in cap hell at the time, so that really tied their hands. So ultimately Arizona kept Oliver Ekman-Larsson. And then Darcy Kuemper, I mean, he's shown that he could be a stud goaltender in stretches as well, but it also wouldn't have made sense why the Arizona Coyotes would have traded him to bring in some equivalent value. But I think the Calgary Flames were better off waiting to free frenzy when they signed Jacob Markstrom instead of going after Darcy Kuemper in a trade. But I think the Calgary Flames were better off, bowing out if we were apparently one of the finalist teams that were looking at Pierre-Luc Dubois coming to the Calgary Flames. I just don't think the assets we would have to give up. I understand you got to give to get, but I don't think it would have made sense for the Flames at this time. And who knows what kind of effort you would have gotten with Pierre-Luc Dubois. Let's say if things don't necessarily work, that if he's disgruntled again and he's skating around like he is on Olympic Plaza ice at front of City Hall, and then maybe he might be available on the market again in a couple of years, because he is still going to be a free agent, but he would just be a restricted free agent because he hasn't got enough years in yet to be an unrestricted free agent. But I believe that would be right, because he just ended his entry-level deal right now. So anyway, I just want to say thanks for watching, and feel free to comment on the trade that actually happened and the hypothetical trade that would it take for the Calgary Flames. And I'll say go Flames go, and I'll see you in the next video.